What a wild week one in the National Football League as we take a look at some of the biggest winners and losers. Hey everyone, welcome to NFL This Week. Rob Wong joined alongside by Postmedia's Paul Chapman. And Paul, you couldn't have asked for a better week one in the NFL. There were a ton of close and exciting games, but there were some disappointments as well, sadly, including your Cincinnati Bengals, who I'm sure you do have some thoughts on. We'll get to the lowlights in a moment, but let's start with the positives. What stood out to you in week one with regards to the teams and players that are trending up?
Well, you're right, Rob. In particular, the primetime games were just full of intrigue, starting on the Thursday night with just an amazing Baltimore-Kansas City game. So I wanted to start with the Sunday night game, Detroit and the Rams. Detroit won, and they went to overtime. But what really impressed me about them was when you look at the Lions, you think, of course, they've got Jared Goff. Of course, they've got Amon St. Brown. And you've got Jahmyr Gibbs. And, of course, Sam Laporta. Well, add David Montgomery and Jameson Williams to the list. Montgomery scores the winning touchdown in overtime, but he was just a beast, in particular in the fourth quarter and in overtime, running for 91 yards. And then Jameson Williams, one of the NFL leaders, 123 yards and a TD. So if you've got two viable receiving targets, plus the best young tight end in football, two great running backs, plus Jared Goff, and then you've got that defense led by Aiden Hutchinson, the Lions just looked amazing to me. Next, let's look at the 49ers. Again, Monday night. All this anticipation, big matchup. Rodgers, we'll get to him in a bit, against the 49ers, but game time decision right before the game. Christian McCaffrey can't run. Oh, no, that's half the Niners offense. Well, it's going to be touch and go. They are at home. They ran away with that game, and Jordan Mason steps in for McCaffrey, goes 147 yards on one TD. Those are two performances that really stood out to me. Also, you got to look at the Houston Texans. C.J. Stroud, again, we saw what he did last year. They added Joe Mixon from the Bengals for a seventh-round pick. 159 yards, was named AFC Player of the Week, a touchdown, 19 yards receiving. Just some great performances from players maybe you didn't expect it, names you didn't know. And when you took a look at these good teams and you get defenses taking away what they have and these other guys stepping up, it just adds for more intrigue. One more that I'll throw in there. Again, it was against the Bengals. Gerard Mayo, new coach taking over for Bill Belichick, obviously a defensive guru, played under Belichick. What a performance their defense put on. They had the best tackling statistics in all of the NFL, the shortest distance before contact. You can maybe write that off to some of the Bengals' worries, but there go the Patriots on the road playing a journeyman quarterback, and their defense really got the job done.
Yeah, I'll throw in one more team there. The Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen, just looking great yet again. So I'm sure the people from maybe Southern Ontario and upstate New York watching this video are like, hey, what about the Bills? Well, there you got your shutout with Josh Allen and his strong week number one.
Absolutely. And the fact is they were down early and they could have turtled, and they didn't. They were playing, you're playing Arizona. You think that's a game that maybe they're going to run away with, and then you end up down and you fight back. So yeah, I think Josh Allen's really taking the season a bit personally.
All right, now time for the bad. And as I mentioned earlier, Paul, your Cincinnati Bengals hurting a bunch of people last week, whether it be in survivor pools or fantasy football. This team as good as anybody does. What did you see in week number one, and how concerning is this moving forward?
Well, again, you do give credit to Gerard Mayo and the defense, but what is concerning, I think, for everyone in the NFL who looks at a supposedly elite quarterback like Joe Burrow, he threw two passes more than 10 yards. He looked skittish. He looked unsettled. The phrase that quarterbacks hate to hear is happy feet. Now, of course, he's coming back off a dreadful wrist injury. Jamar Chase out of sorts because of this contract situation. T. Higgins wasn't playing. Still, they took one shot downfield all game and no big plays. Now, okay, let's look at Tanner Hudson, who makes a ridiculous play, fumbling on the 1 yard line, and Mike Gesicki, who caught a touchdown and couldn't complete it to the ground. Maybe that changes the game, but overall, either the game plan or Burrow checking down for those little 1 and 2 yard bubble screens, that's a concern. And they have Kansas City this week, Rob. So is this probably going to be the third year in a row that the Bengals start 0-2 and have to dig themselves out of a hole?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough going with regards to the Bengals. What other teams stood out to you as far as ones that did not perform up to snuff in week one?
Well, it made me laugh. Let's go to the New York duo. Probably the best statistic I've seen all week in a long time, actually. Daniel Jones has thrown more touchdowns to his opponents than to his own teammates since he signed his $160 million 4-year contract extension. This now means in the latest odds, Brian Daboll has moved up to 3-1 as the first coach to be fired in the NFL. And look, they've put so much money into Jones. You can't move on from him just by cutting him. But it looks like it's going to be a long season in Giantland. Also for the Jets, look, there's no shame in losing on the road to the 49ers. And Aaron Rodgers, same as Burrow, coming off a long injury, hasn't played in a long time, factor in his age. No touchdowns, 231 yards from Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor comes in, throws the only touchdown of the game. Jets lose 32-19, and that was a garbage time touchdown. So Rodgers moves the team down the field early, scores a touchdown. You think this is going to be a great game, and then they just looked awful. That Jets defense was supposed to be, regardless of who was at quarterback, the Jets defense is supposed to be fearsome. They didn't look so against a stand-in undrafted rookie. We already talked about Malone. So I look at that as well. Robert Saleh, 9-1 now to be the first coach fired. You also got to look at Nathan Hackett. How long does that last? And if you start to look at some of the next games that we'll see this week, obviously the Giants play the Commanders. That's a tough matchup in the division. So these teams don't want to start 0-2. The Jets are playing the Titans, who looked good in the first half, terrible in the second half. Other disappointments to me. Even though the Bears won, Caleb Williams, ton of hype over him. He did not look good, only 93 yards passing. Falcons, 2 interceptions and only 155 yards for Kirk Cousins. And again, the Steelers defense is a beast. But the Steelers won that game on the road without even scoring a touchdown. So a lot of big names. Look, you got to give people time. First week, always full of surprises. But I think there were a lot of veteran performances, in particular by quarterbacks, Rodgers, Burrow, Cousins, Jones, which you really have to wonder where this is going to go.
Yeah, you mentioned Jones. There's that Hard Knocks clip circulating of GM Joe Shane asking his kids who he should draft in the first round. Maybe they should have traded up to get Jane Daniels, who his son, I believe, wanted to draft, and that would have been a nice addition for this Giants team that, as you say, really struggling right now with Daniel Jones at quarterback. But as always, leave your thoughts in the comments section below. For Paul Chapman, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next week.